It may be arriving right at the tail end of 2014, despite launching elsewhere a year ago, but we have a lot of time for the Honor 3C and its aims. This phone is one of the few mobiles to offer a convincing alternative to the budget champion, the Motorola Moto G. Typical of Huawei, there are a few little design blunders and the £109 version doesn't have 4G, but the Honor 3C is still one of the best budget phones of the year. It puts the Samsung and Sony budget mobiles to shame in some core respects. After all that praise, we're going to get back down to earth with one of the Honor 3C's weaker areas. Like the Honor 6, it has a supremely glossy back, but this time it's not pretending to be glass. It's just plastic that's so shiny it looks as though it's been laminated. It's a completely unforgiving surface that's going to do the Honor 3C no favors in the long run. Yes, it may look flashier than matte plastic to some eyes, but it'll show up scratches, scrapes, and marks like badges of honor. The feel is more contentious than soft touch or plain plastic, too, with a slightly tackier vibe. If Honor toned down the finish by about 50% or we'd be a lot happier. There's still a chance for that, though the Honor 3C uses a removable cover, and already you can import replacement covers should yours get too tatty. If the 3C proves popular, and by all rights it should, these may make their way to some UK retailers. Honor 3C screen. The screen is the most remarkable element of the Honor 3C. Its specs are similar to those of the 2014 Moto G, which cost around £30 more, a not insignificant amount at this level. It has a 5-inch 1280 x 720 pixel IPS screen, and for the price it is superb. It's sharp, bright, and fairly color accurate. To our eyes it appears perhaps even superior to the Moto G's display, with even less evidence of the pixel structure until you get your eye dangerously close to the screen. The resolution earns the phone 294 ppi, a bit lower than the iPhone 6s Retina standard, but fairly close given how cheap this phone is. The Honor 3C runs Android 4.2.2 and Emotion UI 2.0, the Huawei custom Android interface. One of the disappointments of the phone is that both of these are very out of date. Android is now at version 5.0, and we'd ideally like to see Honor at least use Android 4.4. We've been in contact with an Honor rep, who told us there are no plans to give the Honor 3C an upgrade to either Android 4.4 or Android 5.0. This is a significant black mark against the phone, especially when the Moto G 2013 and 2014 have already been upgraded to Android 5.0. The custom interface used here is quite unusual, too. It throws away the standard layout of Android, taking out the separate apps menu in favor of keeping everything on the home screens. Any little performance issues here seem to be the result of software problems and a lack of optimization in Emotion UI 2.0, rather than a fault of the hardware, which is similar or better to what you get in the Moto G. The Honor 3C has a 1.3 GHz quad-core MediaTek MT6582 CPU, which offers similar performance to the Qualcomm Snapdragon 400 performance used pretty widely in bigger name budget phones. In Geekbench 3 it scores 1135 points, very close to the result of the Moto G. It even has 2 GB RAM instead of the more common 1 GB, which makes Huawei/Honor's performance spoiling blunders all the more annoying. The Honor 3C has clearly done its best to outdo the competition with the spec of its cameras. It has an 8-megapixel sensor on the back with an LED flash and a 5-megapixel 1.1 on the front. This sort of loadout wouldn't look out on place on a £200 phone, so it clearly seems impressive on a £110 one. In reality, there's still the whiff of compromise we expect from cameras of entry-level phones. It's fairly slow, with shutter and processing lag, meaning the Honor 3C misses out on much of the immediacy we look for in a phone camera. Video resolution goes up to 1080p, but 720p is the standard res. Comparing the two, we imagine this is because 1080p doesn't appear to add dramatically to the detail captured, perhaps because of the fairly basic sensor quality. The Honor 3C has clearly done its best to outdo the competition with the spec of its cameras. It has an 8-megapixel sensor on the back with an LED flash and a 5-megapixel one on the front. The app is reasonably good too. It's not flashy, but is quick and easy to use, with an interface designed for two-handed operation. Your left thumb chooses what mode to use while the right takes pics. There are plenty of modes too, including HDR, panorama, filters and one that lets you separately pick metering and focus points. The resulting pictures tend to be a little noisy even in daylight, and color can look a little unsophisticated, with, as is common in cheaper phones, red tones looking a little unnatural at times. Low light performance is not good either, with plenty of noise, limited detail, and no dynamic brightening up of scenes to make them clearer. This is no less than we'd expect of a phone this cheap, though. In unchallenging lighting you get more detail than you would with a 5-megapixel sensor. There's some fine noise even in decent lighting, but it's only visible close up. Dynamic range and low light shooting aren't too strong, but you could improve the above with post-processing or the HDR mode. We were a little more impressed with the Honor 3C's front camera, which has a 5-megapixel sensor where most at the price have, maximum, 2 megapixels. Battery life. The Honor 3C has a 2300 mAh battery, which is a fair but not staggering size for a 5-inch 720p screen phone. Unlike the pricier Honor 6, it doesn't hugely ramp up battery capacity to ensure decent stamina. That phone has a 3100 mAh battery while having the same screen size as the Honor 3C. However, we found battery life to be fairly good. The Honor 3C is actually a year old. It was announced in December 2013 for the Chinese market, but for some reason it took a year to make it to UK shops. This dated-ness shows in some respects. The UK version doesn't have 4G, and it runs an old version of Android with a custom interface taped on top that doesn't feel as well optimized as the latest versions we've seen in phones such as the Huawei Ascend Mate 7. The Honor 3C is a very attractive device whose screen and stature mean it can compare at least superficially with phones twice the price. We just wish Honor hadn't already ruled out giving it an update to Android 5.0 Lollipop. Just because it's not a new phone doesn't mean it's not new to markets other than China. Verdict. An excellent screen helps us live with the Honor 3C's dated elements, Android 4.2 software and non-4G mobile internet.